Can an island truly just disappear and vanish without a trace? Is it possible? And has it happened before in history? Most importantly, is there really an interesting suspect from an ancient culture on this particular island who still might be there to this very day? And could this have some kind of impact and real insight on other key events within our history? All that and more, look for coming up next, right here, JTC channel. Thank you. The topic is the island Esanbe Hanakita Kojima, a mysterious Japanese island off the coast of coastal Japan, said to be one of the most mysterious islands in modern history, as well as potentially dangerous, although nothing that we cannot handle, let's put it that way. The island was found just a year or so ago to have entirely disappeared and vanished. They sent out everything that you could possibly send out on the water, and none of their instruments were able to catch a glimpse of literally anything at all. It's directly near the edge of Hanakita Island, right there at the coast of Japan and Russia. That's up next. Thank you. An island off Japan's coast disappeared beneath the Pacific Ocean. It isn't likely you have ever heard of the small Japanese inland island Esanbe Hanakita Kojima, but it just hit the headline news after disappearing beneath the Pacific Ocean. A combination of wind and impact, said to be from drift ice, was what caused the over 1,600 foot island, or 500 meters, to disappear, although it was never confirmed what was the cause. While the tiny piece of land was too small to be of any true agricultural use, it had an importance, a vital importance beyond its size. Before it disappeared, it marked the western edge of a disputed island chain known only in Japan as the Northern Territories, while Russia states it is also called the Kuril Islands. So now Japan's territory has shrunk by half a kilometer, nearly a third of a mile. Esanbe Hanakita Kojima was 500 meters across and off of the shore from Sarafutsu Village, which is located on Hokkaido Island. It was only then author Hiroshi Shimazu visited Sarafutsu to continue writing about Japan's hidden islands that disappeared, and the disappearance of Esanbe Hanakita Kojima in particular. He then confirmed it after looking into the area where it once had stood. Esanbe Hanakita Kojima is not the only island to be swallowed by the Pacific Ocean. Last month, the Hawaiian archipelago East Island met a similar fate that could be compared to Easter Island. In that case, surging sea levels were said to be the cause, although nothing was ever confirmed. Now the Coast Guard has visited and plans to confirm if the island has disappeared, though it may have been underwater for some time, they claim. And of course, when they went there and they went to this location, it was right here by Hokkaido Island, they searched and they sent out everyone that they could, but of course the Coast Guard found nothing. And so they were unable to confirm whether this island had ever even existed, essentially. And it's a very interesting story because we still do not have any true answers of whether indeed it actually did exist, other than, people say they have photographs of it and things like that, but it's like, if there was an ancient civilization, as I kind of mentioned earlier in this video, What kind of impacts does it have on the story, and what could cause something so surreal like this to occur and to happen? Indeed, it's a question we will all be pondering. So thank you again. Be sure to like, spread this knowledge, get this out to the general public as well. They need to know that this has been happening with these islands. Until next time. And so, in conclusion, folks, Hanakita Kojima Island essentially vanished and disappeared without a trace. It's a very fascinating story. And a lot of the island's inhabitants, of course, spoke later about the fact that they sent out all of this equipment and they knew about certain rumors of an ancient civilization, whether it be Mayans or other race, you might call it, who spoke about the fact that they had no idea, but perhaps even just maybe a vortex or something might have been the cause of the Kojima Islands disappearance. But that's the most ironic part about any of this. I just wanted to mention, folks, is we ultimately do not know the answer to what caused these disappearances. But nonetheless, the islands entirely vanished without a trace. And some of the inhabitants of these islands who were in the Mayan kind of civilization and similar, they often used to talk about how they had a certain appetite for other people, other inhabitants, so forth, in the past, which would make a lot of sense given the ancient technology of the civilization. We're talking about one that's probably more than 1 million years old. It's beyond what we can comprehend, you know. And the Japanese government, they again sent out all their instruments. They tried to figure out everything they could. They even put them deep into the ocean to see if they could pinpoint what could possibly have caused this to happen. And nothing, you know. So that's how it ends, folks. And to this day, there's not really any answers. And so I just want to let you know, this is a very important topic. And I appreciate being able to cover island topics. So if you like it, make sure to show your appreciation. And sometime, or perhaps even sometime soon, another video will be shot about some of these mysterious islands. Because they have a lot to teach the world. And I think that we can learn quite a bit from the circumstances surrounding these particular islands. Maybe even the civilizations that existed upon them. Thank you again. Make sure to spread the word. Japan has a grand total of exactly 158 uninhabited islands that have never seen any kind of people ashore. And Esanbe Hanakita Kojima is one of those islands. The disappearance of the island has caused a bit of worry for Japanese authorities nationwide. As it is, the outlying islands have been under dispute for quite some time with China and the South China Sea. Around this island, Esanbe Hanakita Kojima lies in the Northern Territories. This bit has been under dispute between Japan and Russia for several years. Reports suggested the Japanese author Hiroshi Shimazu had visited the village of Sarafutsu to write the book on the hidden islands of Japan during this week. It was then that he realized that the island was not even in existence any longer. He went on to alert local fisheries and the cooperative. Eventually, the search party was sent out, but they could not find any trace of this island. The island was last surveyed in 1987 and at the time was jutting only 1.4 meters above the surface of the water. Experts have suggested that the island probably got eroded by wind and drift ice, even though land disappearances are not new to Japan's quiet economic system. This disappearance has caused a lot of alarm across the island, Japan. In 2016, a study by environmental research letters showed that Pacific Ocean's Solomon's Islands, the 5 reef islands, disappeared between 1947 and the year 2014. It has been noted since by many scholars that extreme events like seawalls and inappropriate developments during the time caused shoreline changes across the area. So this was a very interesting story because this island just out of nowhere entirely disappeared, basically into the Pacific Ocean, as though, it had never been there to start with. And so this was very unusual. And there are some other key aspects to this case. One of the people found on this island was basically somebody who belonged to an ancient tribe. He had very little memory of what had taken place at the actual island's, shoreline. But all the same, when it disappeared, this turned a lot of heads. And this definitely changed the landscape in the Asia Minor region from that point onward. So when we look at islands that are in the Pacific Ocean, we have to think and remember this island right here. A very unusual island because no one had ever seen anything like the Solomon Islands of the Pacific Ocean until coming across the official Esanbe Hanakita Kojima. And that is indeed its real name. It's very, very, very abstract because it comes from a specific region directly by the nation of Japan. Very few have explored the area around Japan and the surrounding islands such as the Solomon Islands since this time. But there's a lot that can be seen about the Esanbe Hanakita. And normally when an island shows up, you are going to see residual waves. You're going to see a lot of topographical changes in the ocean because the moon will set to the current kind of a certain trajectory. It sets a certain formula in the actual ocean. That didn't occur for some reason around Hanakita. And that is an interesting aspect to this whole case. It's another reason why I kind of wonder from time to time, could it be that there was an ancient civilization on top of this island who lived there, who knew certain things about the way that the ocean works that a lot of us do not? Because we think about when we go out on the ocean, we've got to take a compass. We've got to compare the air pressure in between, whether it's going to the north or south coordinates and things like that. We think in very, very small terms. But what is interesting to note about the Hanakita Island, essentially, or Hanakita in other words, the Hanakita Kojima Island didn't exhibit any of those actual traces or signs. It's a very unusual island nonetheless. It's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and didn't seem to have been disturbed for all that time that it was out there. There was no real traces of, such things as everything being eroded by the wind or being pulled under by different... That the public is entitled to have answers to these questions one day. No question about that. But as to what could have caused it, I'll be honest, folks. I am a bit mystified. But I feel like if nature scientists can't explain it, and they cannot, and neither can the Japanese government ultimately, that other alternative causes could indeed be behind the vanishing of this small island directly off the coast of Japan. And when you really think about it, civilization there in places such as what's underneath the ocean with the shipwrecks and the ancient Mayans and cultures, it's thousands of years old, even 1,000,000 years old. And to this day, people don't have real tangible answers as to what those civilizations were doing. And so my way that I look at that is, then perhaps that gives us the exact answer we truly need. Perhaps indeed, ancient civilizations of some type that we would not have any familiarity with, or that we would know ourselves personally, that we would not be familiar with them ourselves. And certainly we may have heard of these civilizations, but something else other than us, and other than just random UFOs, essentially caused an entire island directly off of Japan to disappear and vanish beneath the waves. Thank you again. There's a lot we could see from this, because look at the size of this island. I've even shown it kind of in the back of the background for a little bit here. There's just so many questions and so few answers. And that's more and more the reason why this is a topic the world needs to know. Thank you again. Keep spreading the word, and perhaps one day we will finally have answers to what happened to some of these islands. It's just amazing, isn't it? It's there one day, and it's gone the next, as though it never existed at all. And that's what can pretty much sum up a number of these islands. Thank you once again. Always a pleasure.